is going to turn into different parts because I didn't realize that my storage on my phone was full. So hopefully we're going to have probably a loss of continuity because I was unaware of that and I kept talking. So I'll jump back in. I was speaking about my tattoos on my chest, explaining it while I was in Afghanistan. So I don't know if I'm going to be redundant on this, but I guess this will help me sum it up quicker. So I learned that the Muslim faith, they believe in the same God as Christians do and Jews do. But they believe that Muhammad was a prophet and Jesus was a prophet, similar to the Jewish faith. But just like, and I'm not sure if I said this already, but just like how the Jewish faith doesn't recognize Jesus as the Messiah, neither does the Muslim faith, because Jesus wasn't a warrior, and that was one of the factors that those religions believed the Messiah would be. So, and again, people who specialize in these religions may try and discredit me or talk, whatever they might say, because whether they envy if this is a successful video or whatever it might be, but I'm just speaking from my experience. So I would hope that you understand that I'm speaking in terms that people of all faiths can understand, and I'm speaking how my perspective is. So the reason why many who believe in the Muslim religion, not only just because, like any religion, is they're born into it and it's all they know, but they also looked at Muhammad just like how many look at Jesus as a wise person who helped advance their lineage, basically, and who their family and other people prosper from. Which there's things like that, the prayer rituals that the Muslim faith does, and the washing rituals, where it made me realize that if you look at it on a science or biological level, you'll see that it would make sense that people who follow these practices would be healthier. So people who wash themselves, religiously, literally, they're going to be less sick. And I'm speaking very broadly, so again, you can hold off on trying to use some of my words against me to discredit me. But it also, their prayer ritual is more of like a yoga ritual as well. So if somebody's like, oh, my back's hurting or my legs are hurting, and they say, well, did you pray? You should pray about it. And you go through all the religious prayer, bending and all that kind of stuff. And if you continue to do that, for depending on what your injuries are and stuff like that, you're going to notice a difference, and you're going to be like, wow, prayer has helped me. So when you start to see those kind of things, it was almost like I was taking a step back in time and I was able to kind of look at a religion as it's like almost like if I were to go back in time and look at Christianity coming up, or from a different perspective, I could see how certain aspects of ritual end up being beneficial, whether it is in a spiritual way for the mind to reach peace, or a physical way through certain rituals. It was a very rewarding thing to see. So again, I'm not sure if I said this in the previous part, but I also saw like the negative side of it, and saw how people in madrasas could use their knowledge of Arabic, translating it to Pashto or other languages, and use it to manipulate people, just like how any teacher can do that in a school, or they can do it in Christianity, where they used to speak only in Latin, and say, when I translate this to a language that they can really have free reign kind of to manipulate their followers. And from that, I kind of learned the negative aspects of religion, and that began to get me to start to not question religion in a sense, but question religious teachers, and almost look at most religious teachers as false prophets, as some would say, because they're kind of taking the religion into their own translations. So there may be more things that I said when I thought I was recording when I'm not, but hopefully that gives you an aspect of some of what I learned through my experience in Afghanistan, and the faith of the way I learned the Muslim faith, and the perspective at which I learned it from. So I traveled. I'm jumping back to being back in America. I came back from the war, and it's more of a conflict than a war. We'll probably, if this video does what it's supposed to do, we'll probably see a lot of conflict of people who support my understanding of religion, and people who are reluctant to see things from others' perspectives. It could, biblically, it could result in a world war. Some of my ideology that I developed, and my understanding of existence, because oftentimes, like I learned, and this is a good transition into my learnings of the Buddhist faith, and it's that oftentimes these religious prophets or religious messengers, they're really just speaking from themselves and their own experience, and people who study these things, they don't necessarily experience that. And that's a big kind of thing to understand. Is so the way I explain it before is there's two ways you can learn something. You can either learn from previous knowledge, or you can learn from trial and error. And I have gone through a lot of trial and error through my life, and I've learned a lot of things through suffering, basically, and doing the wrong thing. And that gives you knowledge. Whereas if you learn from previous knowledge, like those who study religion most of the time, you're never gaining an understanding or a knowledge. You're just gaining you're just learning something. So you know the what and the how, but you don't really understand the why as to why religions are what they are. And it's kind of like a blind faith at that point. So while I was learning about Buddhism in Hawaii, I came to the really interesting understanding that Buddha himself, and for those of you who don't know, and if you're of that faith, again, try not to discredit me from paraphrasing or speaking to people who don't know the faith. But Buddha himself was basically a rich prince who had his whole life given to him, and chose to run away from that in pursuit of a higher cause. Like, there must be more to life than this. And a very long story made short, and what I think is the most important thing to take away from the Buddhist faith, and why I, for a while, considered myself to be enlightened, as Buddha was, and why some people of the Buddhist faith, when hearing this, hopefully understand and would see why they could consider me as an incarnation of Buddha, because, and hopefully themselves as well, if they understand this. But again, you'd have to understand through your own experiences, not just me telling you. And that is that he went to practice just similar how, people practice both a lot of different faiths now through meditation. And during his lifetime, that was the religion. It's just like me, how I studied, Christianity, because that's what I was around. And Buddha meditated and starved himself and tried to reach some sort of deep understanding. And sadly, today, a lot of people do the same thing in many religions to try and reach these like nirvanas and levels of enlightenment. And when it comes down to it, the lesson that Buddha learned from starving himself under a tree was that the main thing is that you have to be happy with the lot you are in life. You have to really, Buddha really realized that he messed up, that he should have been happy as the prince with the loving wife and children and all the money. He should have just learned to be happy with that life that he was given instead of trying to seek a deeper meaning. So at the end of the day, he lost everything to achieve an understanding that he should have just been happy with what he got. And ironically, today, like I said, in many other religions, people still try and reach that point by giving up everything and meditating and doing all this stuff. And it's understandable, because it's not easy to love yourself and to be happy with yourself and to come with an inner peace, because you're dealing with all these conflicts in the world and all these struggles, and you try and justify them of how did I make these mistakes, why did I make these mistakes. And I'll explain that. I guess I can explain it now. It kind of goes into Hinduism. So what is important to know, and why, well, I want to say one more quick thing about Buddhism, and where I was getting at is, like, you don't need to do all that stuff. You don't need to do all that stuff. And Buddha, that's why he became the big, fat, happy Buddha, was because after he realized that, he was just enjoying life. And when you come to that, great understanding, and hopefully after you watch this video, and hopefully I do a well enough job at explaining how I've reached that understanding. And that doesn't mean that I never get upset or angry or anything like that, because I've experienced even after reaching enlightenment and an understanding of what the universe is and how it is, which I'll explain, is it's not always easy. You're still dealing with other people. You're still dealing with people that some people maliciously try and hurt your life. Other people, they do things and they don't understand you when you try and explain things. And like I'm sure you'll see from this post, is people will, they feel envious, they feel prideful, they feel all these like negative virtues and values and towards you, and they'll try and pull you down and bring you to their level because they want to prove their own beliefs to be true and prove you to be wrong. And really what you need to understand is what I'm about to tell you here. And this is the kind of understanding of what the universe is and how us as humans came to be in this large world that exists and this large existence, and answer all those questions of like, well, why this, how this, why this, how this. And what it comes down to is I'll start at the beginning. And the beginning of existence is never ending. The beginning is also the end, and it continues to go and go and go, and sometimes it ends in some spots and begins in another. And the way that I can explain that best to you is picture the universe, or existence, not the universe, picture existence all as an infinite as it is, as a bunch of, picture it as nothing, completely filled with nothing, right? And that's going to be all of existence as spread out as it can possibly be. Now, as it begins to pull together, that's when you start to see, planets form and other celestial bodies form and all these things form. And this takes millions and millions of years, which the Hindu religion does a decent job, and I'm not sure on the exact, to give them full credit on the math with it, but they do a phenomenal job at explaining that existence is bigger than the world, where a lot of other religions, they focus more on the world and not, as they would say, the heavens or other existence outside of the world. So as these planets and everything combine and everything like that, we get to points at which life begins to be possible. So chemicals begin to combine, and they begin to create these bodies, and through that you have creatures that are chemical creatures that consume other chemicals and create other chemicals, and those begin to create atmospheres at which biological life can begin to emerge. And when that happens, this happens continuously, and it goes from all that with life emerging, life flourishing, to that being ending, all of that life ending and going back to that spread out of where the whole existence is full again, but then it's starts over. So the interesting thing is this concept of multiverses, where we think the multiverses would all be different. And they're different in the aspects of they might not be experiencing the same time of their existence, but they are all the same, as in, if you spread everything out long enough, it will eventually come together and repeat itself. So all of existence, every single form, is the same. And theoretically, to kind of put this in a picture in your mind, is picture like a bunch of bubbles together, and picture those being existence, forming and everything like that. And picture yourself inside that bubble. and picture another one of yourselves inside those other bubbles, and you have all came together at the same time, and you're all growing at the same time or different times. And let's say that one of your instances would travel out to the edge of that bubble, and another one of your instances happened to be orientated so that another you was traveling out to that same spot. You could theoretically see yourself and you would make the same decisions. And this goes into how destiny and free will can exist together, because both of those people have experienced, or things have experienced, the same existence. They had to have, because every single thing that exists always makes, from its perspective, and this is the hard part for people to grasp that can't see other people's perspective, it sees and experiences and makes the same decision no matter what. So every single thing, from a blade of grass orientating itself towards the sun and their roots seeking water, it's all going to be repetitive, because no matter what, it's going to be the same, and those chemicals are going to combine the same way every single time. So this multiverse idea that it's all different is not what it is. It's all the same, and it is all repetitive, and that's why you have religions that understand reincarnation and everything like that, because you yourself, when your life ends here, there'll be a time in the cosmos where you might not exist, or a version of yourself will exist in another area, but it will still be you. It will still be, if you saw yourself there, you would see you. If you watched yourself, you'd be like, I remember that, and you'd see yourself. So theoretically, if you could, astral project yourself to one of those other universes, depending on what time they're experiencing at that moment in their universal lifespan, then you would be able to experience, from an observer's perspective, your life, which would be a profound experience. So that explains the Hinduism's belief without using the metaphors that they use, telling the story in a personification of their gods. And I'm not saying, again, this is me trying to explain to all the religions, so if you're of the Hindu faith, try not to, discredit me because of my translation, but that's how you can understand that is what it is. And that's Vishnu, right? The one who observes all of that and who has always been around and will always be around. And Vishnu, what it really is understanding. When you understand all that, you can picture it in your mind of what it is, what existence is. So hopefully that brings people closer to enlightenment or nirvana or whatever their, word they want to use as it. But that's how religion is all the same. And so for those that feel like I kind of left you, those people who believe in some other faiths, it's important to believe that all these religions are man-made. They're just constructs of different families of people telling their history of their beliefs, of this greater understanding that life isn't magical. It's not. It all makes sense. There's no point where I'm gonna, or any being is gonna be like fire, unless it can be explained through understanding and observation of what is happening. So people take advantage of that, and that's how magic has existed throughout the years, is people understand different chemicals and different things, and once you understand it, you can take advantage of people who don't. I could use this to take advantage of people who don't understand what existence really is. And that's not the intention of this. The intention of this is to enlighten the world on a common belief structure and understanding that this is how existence is. And you shouldn't be worried that if you die, am I going to go to heaven or see my family again, and all those questions. It's like, I mean, yeah, theoretically, that is what's going to happen, is another you is going to exist, another and you're going to be incarnated again, reliving your life, but it's not you, it's another you existing and experiencing your whole world. And that can be discouraging, but it can also be happy once you understand it, that right now you're alive, and right now your future is determined by you. And no matter what your outcomes are going to be, what they're going to be, because you're going to see things from your perspective, and you're going to try and do what's best, and that's not going to necessarily be the thing that you think is going to reach the outcome might not reach the outcome that you want, and there may be factors that you're not considering. But to have that knowledge that in the end of it, you're always your life will end and it will start again, and it will be what it was, and your best thing to do is be a good person to enjoy life and be happy. That's really all you can do. And I'll go into more episodes about kind of ways to free yourself from the societal restraints that we implement on ourselves and the oppression that we put on other people and all that stuff. So hopefully, you can use this to not only seek enlightenment in your own self and gain a sense of happiness and understanding in life, but you can also use it to choose a way of life that will benefit your future, as in yourself and your family in the future, and see how it can help to just establish a kingdom for yourself. And that's really what it is you're establishing. And what a kingdom is hey buddy, thanks Max, thanks bud, I need you to lay down for a second. It's understanding, all of existence, and passing that knowledge on to the next generation, because they're getting their knowledge from you. So if you give them bad knowledge, they're going to have a bad life. And unfortunately, though, if you just give someone the knowledge like I'm giving you, it doesn't mean that you're going to have a good life, because you still have to go through the struggles of life in order to gain that knowledge, because you'll learn about it and you'll know about it, you'll know what it is and how it is, but to understand why it is what it is, you have to experience it for yourself, right? You're not gonna understand what happiness is if all of you experience is happiness. It's just gonna be what life is. And through understanding and going through struggle is what gives you the understanding of what happiness is. And that's why in life, in this existence, it's perfect in a sense that those who struggle the most, happiness is easier to reach for them. And that's why you see people who are poor find happiness way easier than people who are wealthy, because people who are wealthy are already happy, but they don't know it. And that's like Buddha. The story of Buddha is he was happy and living a perfect life and didn't even know it, because that's all he's experienced. So he had to suffer for himself in order to realize that he fucked up, and sorry for swearing, but that he messed up, and that really what he should have done was just realize his lot in life and pass that on to children, and hopefully most of you have known this, but the Lion King. That's what Mufasa's telling Simba, is the circle of life is life and destruction, and it's good for some people and bad for some people, and you have to see it for what it is to appreciate it. And that's the only way to do it, unfortunately. And that's what an all-knowing, all-powerful, all-present being that is in every single thing, that understands every single person's life, that understands and experiences their suffering along with their joy, it can't make a decision, because it's you're choosing to hurt one thing to make something else feel better. And you can't do that. That's, if you're an all-knowing, all-powerful, all-present being, because you're going to feel the same suffering that you create for one thing, that you just gave the life to the other thing and the happiness to the other thing, right? You can't have somebody, a lion, kill a gazelle and not have that gazelle feel pain. You can't have the hunger of a lion be quenched without having that lion devour that gazelle. You can't have the forest growing and covering up another tree and causing it to die, and not understand that in order for that one thing to live the life that it wanted to, that it couldn't take out, that it could leave that other thing. You understand that, mosquitoes larvae feeds fish, and that those fish feed other animals. And it's an understanding that you have to be okay with. That's what's going to give you happiness, is understanding that life is what it is. It's happy, it's sad, it's horrible, it's destructive, it's creative, it's everything that it is. And that's what you have to come to terms with. Once you come to terms with that, that's how you reach your state of peace. And the state of peace allows you to create a life for yourself and for your family and for your future, and to say, like, hey, you're hurting other people. Stop doing that. You don't need to consume that much. You're gluttonous. You're eating more than you need to. You're hurting more than you need to. And if you understand that, then you're not going to do those things. If you understand the struggle and pain and if you understand what your actions are causing for other people, if you understand people's other perspective, then you are going to be a better person. And that's why empathy is important. And that's why people who don't have empathy, who can't see another person's perspective, that's why they're deemed words that are derogatory and hurtful, like psychopaths and all this other kind of stuff that we use to describe more words to try and get a better understanding of what things are. And it's a lack of empathy is what it comes down to with a lot of these things, of what are these things that people see as evil, right? And then people overthink this too, and what they do when they overthink it is they say, okay, well, I'm not gonna hurt anything, I'm not gonna kill any animals because I don't want these animals to experience their pain. And then it's like, well, you're missing the point on that end too, because then you're going to be suffering. So now you're creating a suffering on yourself, and you're blaming other people for things that aren't. You're making yourself suffer, or telling other people that they have to suffer so that other things don't suffer. And once you understand all of this, what you start to realize is that the best thing you can do is try and make as little waves in the pond as you can. Try and live a life that is sustainable, self-sustainable, where you don't require other people to work and do things in order for you to live your life, that everyone just kind of can live peacefully in an existence together by taking care of themselves, like, and look at nature in the way that you can, like, if you have, like, and I'll go into that in a different episode. I'll talk about self-sustaining in the next episode, so we'll just end on that. But that's what enlightenment is, people, and that's how we understand every single religion, understand what it is, understand what these gods are trying to teach us, and how to live that life that they live. Because that's why, when you're asking, why isn't God doing this stuff? Well, that's why. God's not going to do those things, because God understands. And that's what it comes down to, is an understanding. And you're not going to reach that understanding and that calm and that peace unless you do those things. So I hope that was good for you. And Max, I understand that he wants to go to the bathroom and go for a walk, so I'm going to go do that. Enjoy your day. I hope part 2 is good, and we'll see.